Turns out Kansas looks pretty underrated, right? Bill Self might have a squad. They win at Louisville 90-82 in their exhibition matchup.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? This is Locked On Jayhawks, and thanks for joining us anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page. I'm Derek Johnson, and on today's edition of Locked On Jayhawks, by the way, shout out to all the everydayers catching each and every episode of the show. We're going to be breaking down the exhibition victory for KU, 90-82 at Louisville, number 11 in the preseason rankings. You go on the road and you win this game 90-82 in a game that really just kind of felt like you were up by double digits for a majority of the game. In fact, you kind of were. Darryn Peterson, really good at basketball. And it turns out Kansas looks like, they're probably pretty underrated as a team from, being the preseason number 19 team in the country, like we've said all offseason long. So we're going to get into the recap of the win, what went down, plays, moments, stats, awards of the game, and we'll give out some game balls at the end here on Locked On Jayhawks. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by Mazda. If you would have taken a Mazda to the game, you'd be pretty happy, but also because you have a Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. So Kansas wins by 8, and it is just an exhibition game, and you're playing guys who like Jamari McDowell plays 16 minutes. Is that going to happen in another game this season? I don't know. Maybe not. So there's certain things for both teams that you could point to and say, this isn't totally real in what you're seeing and stuff like that. It's not the best indicator. Like Louisville's not always going to shoot 29% from three, but there's still just enough to take away with how good Kansas looked in certain facets, how good Darryn Peterson looked overall, and to be like, okay, if we thought all offseason, and I guess, are we still in the offseason technically now? Because it's not the real game. But anyway, that this team is underrated. And for them to back it up like that on the road in a tough environment against a top 15 opponent, and you compare it to the last 2 years where Kansas loses their exhibition games, right? Kansas loses at Illinois 2 years ago. Kansas gets crushed at Arkansas last year. And obviously last year you had a bunch of guys injured and not playing and stuff like that. But point being, this was a much different vibe. This was a much different feel. And those teams were preseason number 1 teams that couldn't live up to the hype. This one feels like it's being underrated, and it feels like it's going to exceed the hype. That's been my thought all offseason. And this felt like the start of that for me. Darryn Peterson has to be the story of this game. I think there's 2 big stories here, right? One is the center position for KU, and the other one is Darryn Peterson. Let's start there with Darryn Peterson. Darryn Peterson, 26 points. He was 9 of 15 from the floor, 6 of 10 from 3. He even left a couple out there on free throws, and he did all that in 25 minutes. And he also added 4 rebounds and 2 assists. Did have more turnovers than he would like. It's 6 of them. We'll get into the turnovers a little later in the show. The turnovers and the fouls, that was a big thing in this game because it was an exhibition game. It was sloppy. Louisville's pressing all game long in a first game exhibition game. Turnovers and fouls are going to happen when those things are happening. But point being, especially in the first half, Darryn Peterson goes for 24 points in the first half. It was like, okay, Darryn Peterson, if he wanted to, could just not come out of the locker room in the second half and just declare for the NBA draft right then and there, and he's going number 1 in the NBA draft. It was such an impressive outing for him. You just saw everything on display of him as a scorer. And I guess if you want to pick nits, you could say, he only scored 2 points in the second half, though. Okay, it was in 10 minutes. Again, he only played 25 for the game. You're up double digits most of the game. You're getting other players involved. Louisville starts, double hedging you essentially, where you have to give the ball up. It's just put the aggregate together and the impact and the performance. Really, really impressive for Darryn Peterson. I texted this to a friend. It feels like there's going to be games where we're going to walk away this season being like, that wasn't Darryn Peterson's best game, and he's going to have 18 or 20 points. It feels like that's going to be the thing. And then, I feel like there's going to be a 40-point game in there. from Darren Peterson. Like, that feels like something that is going to happen this year based on how, I mean, he was close to, if he would have kept this pace of the first half, to the 50-point performance. Unbelievable talent that KU has there. The other big takeaway from this one, in storyline, I guess, is that center position. I mean, first of all, Floyd Badunga fouls out, and he had to deal with foul trouble throughout the game, which is obviously something to monitor this season because it's something we are a little bit worried about coming into this year. That said, when he was in the game, very impactful. 14 points, 6 rebounds. He was impressive for KU, throwing down dunks, just doing typical Flory things. He had a couple plays. I mean, he had 2 steals. He had a couple plays, though, where he was actually able to, like, off the dribble, create a post move. One of them, he missed it. He left it short. The other one, he finished it on what was almost like it wasn't quite a dunk. He just kind of just dropped it in there, But that was nice to see as well. But it's the other guy at center that adds to this. And I guess if you want to say Bryson Tiller and Paul Mbia are part of this storyline, because, we thought all offseason Paul Mbia was going to be the guy at backup center. Paul Mbia played 2 minutes tonight. Bryson Tiller played 28. And yes, you could say Bryson Tiller was playing really well, so he deserved and earned more minutes. And that is probably factual. But was it enough to have a 28 to 2 minute split between the two guys? I thought Bryson Tiller was really impressive. And I do think, looking back on it as we were previewing the game and we were talking about the center rotation for Louisville, you've got a newcomer in there from Germany. You've got some stretch bigs that throw out there in a team that wants to pace and space you with Louisville and press you and get into a track meet game. Looking back in hindsight, this was kind of a great matchup for Bryson Tiller to get into the game, right? Because you're talking about a big man who can play the 4. We saw a little bit of the 2 big lineup with Tiller next to Flory, but basically as a 5 gives you a super, super, super versatile 5 that KU was able to use. And in a matchup like this, that comes in handy in a lot of ways. And I think you saw that, the fruits of the labor. I think the next thing that you want to see Bryson Tiller accomplish is, what does it look like when you are playing a team who has more traditional post threats that are going to challenge you one-on-one in the post, or going to challenge you in terms of Louisville got a good amount of offensive rebounds in this game, but a team that's more traditionally we're going to bang down low, we're going to go for rebounds. What does Tiller look like in that matchup? But in this specific matchup, he was great. And obviously, as you are trying to figure out, I guess we come away from this game saying that, I'm assuming Bryson Tiller is going to be the backup 5, and you'll get him some minutes at the 4 as well. And then Paul Mbia will kind of be the break glass in case of emergency guy at the center position. That's kind of what it felt like. Because again, this isn't, Tiller played 18 minutes because he was playing well and Mbia played 12. 28 to 2, man. And Tiller was awesome. 12 points, 5 of 8, 7 rebounds, 1 assist. But the biggest contribution he seemed to make to me was the 7'3" wingspan. You noticed it. You noticed it in a big way defensively. How many ball, and this wasn't just a Paul Mbia thing. How many ball, you saw the athleticism and the length of the Kansas defense all night long. Go back and rewatch the game. There are times when Kansas is knocking the ball out of bounds. There was one possession where Kansas, I swear, they deflected 3 balls within a 2-second span. Ball goes out of bounds. It stays with Louisville. But the amount of activity that Kansas is getting around the ball with deflections is insane. And Bryson Tiller was one of those guys who was leading that charge. He ended up with 4 blocks and 2 steals. If he keeps doing those things, he's going to continue to play a lot of minutes. We're going to see more 2 big lineups, and he's going to take the predominant, if not all of the backup big minutes from Floyd Badunga. Really impressive performance. And honestly, as I was watching that game, I hate doing this after one game. We sometimes overdo this with guys, but there was little bits and moments where I was watching there going, okay, we've been talking a lot Cole Rosario be a future pro player. I saw future pro player from Bryson Tiller tonight, right? And if we are going to talk about, some of the biggest positives and negatives from this game, I would say, obviously, the biggest positives, Peterson was good. The center position looked good. Bryson Tiller looked good. I thought Melvin Council in transition was really good for KU, and you saw some of the speed and ability there. The length of KU overall at the center position, that was certainly apparent throughout the game. Did I mention Darryn Peterson's good at basketball? I thought Trey White had kind of a sleepy 14 points, which is a good sign, right? That you have guys that are kind of having sleepy, good performances. There were a lot that you could kind of take away from there. I think the biggest negatives from the game, obviously the Melvin Council rolled ankle at the end. That wasn't great, but seemed like he's going to be okay. I would say that Cole Rosario definitely did not look comfortable. He wound up playing 19 minutes, going 0 for 4 0 of 3 from 3, and some of those misses were kind of ugly there. He just didn't look comfortable out there. There were some diving plays or hustle plays. He had like an offensive rebound kind of outrunning a guy, and he had some plays where he got on the ground, and you could see those are the moments that Bill Self's going to enjoy him. But he just did not look comfortable shooting the basketball and stuff, which you would think that's going to come around with more time and stuff. I think there's probably another question of like, how much did you learn about KU in the half-court offense? Most of this game was played in transition or KU being fouled in the second half. Who's going to be the primary go-to scorer outside of Darryn Peterson when it's in the half-court specifically? Like, those are fair questions that I think you could have from this game, but I don't know how you couldn't be pleased with what you saw out there overall for KU and their 8-point victory at the Cardinals. Let's get to our plays of the game, moments of the game, stats of the game, awards of the game, game balls, all that coming up. This is Locked on Jayhawks. And today's episode of the show is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There's moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's, or I guess tonight's, moment that moved the game forward is, pick one of the many first half threes by Darren Peterson. He just was locked and loaded, ready to go. It's the elevation on the jump shot that he can continually get it over guys, even if it's like semi-contested, and it's just going in. It was just cash. It was just wet. There's nothing the defense could do about it. And when you follow what moves you, which is going to be Darren Peterson all season long, the unexpected is only the beginning. Just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked on Jayhawks, recap of KU winning at Louisville 90-82. You can give us a follow on our Twitter account at LO_Jayhawks. Again, check out the show anywhere you get your podcast or on our YouTube page. Again, shout out to the everydayers. And don't forget, you can check out Locked on College Basketball. We'll be breaking down this game and plenty other of the exhibitions and secret scrimmages going on with Locked on College Football to get you ready for the weekend ahead. So let's start here with our plays of the game. I think you could really pick any of those threes in the first half from Darren Peterson. I like that. Probably the step back was my favorite of the ones that he hit, but like it just felt like dagger after dagger and what he's hitting there. The steal that Darren Peterson gets that leads to the dunk, that was certainly a fun play and one of the fun ones of the game. There were some Flory Badunga alley-oops that were in there, but honestly, my favorite highlight of the game is going back to how well Bryson Tiller played. Is the Bryson Tiller play where it's kind of a scramble. I think it was getting close to the end of the shot clock. I honestly don't remember on the shot clock, but Bryson Tiller gets the ball in the corner, like basically the corner from three. And the Louisville big man, which was their kind of slower big man, one of their backup slower big men that was in there, like he was like, how do I deal with this? Bryson Tiller basically had him come out to him on a closeout, and Tiller was just like, I'm way too versatile, way too fast, way too skilled. Got right by him and threw down a dunk. And those are the plays where you're like, okay, there's going to be a lot of matchups. Like, I just think back to, not to get too extreme with like, oh, Kansas is going to be 2018 Villanova. No, that's not at all what I'm saying. That team was a powerhouse. And as fun as this win was, this team is still not like, they're not a preseason top 10 team by publications. But like, point being, do you remember the matchup problems that Villanova gave teams by having not just Eric Paschal as kind of a 4-5 hybrid that they could use as a stretch big, but also Amari Spellman. Amari Spellman was their big man. I think he was like a late first-round draft pick. Shot like, 35, 40% from three, and he was pretty versatile at the 5 position. There were a lot of teams that just couldn't match up. And like think about Kansas last year. Here's the thing. Like Hunter Dickinson probably would have given Bryson Tiller a lot of points on the block at the other end. I don't know. Maybe not. Tiller's got a great wingspan. But Bryson Tiller would have made life very difficult for Hunter Dickinson defensively. And I bring this up to say there's going to be other good big men like Hunter Dickinson was for Kansas last year that are going to play against Bryson Tiller, and it's just not a good matchup for them. So that was my favorite play of the game, honestly, was that Tiller dunk on kind of the blow by, just to kind of show some of his versatility overall. But I also liked, how could you not love anytime we get a big to big alley oop? Like guard to guard alley oops are fun, big to big alley oops are fun, but the big to big alley oop we had between Flory and Bryson Tiller, that was fun too. So that would go up there as well. Our stat of the game. So holding Louisville to 33% is actually really impressive. They were 10 of 25 on 2-point shots, which is 40%. So that's a really good number to hold them to, which I think you see the length. Obviously, you don't always, like, they missed a good amount of open threes, but I do think them going 11 of 38 from three for 29%. Like, I'm not saying that, again, they had some open threes that they missed that they didn't take advantage of. That said, you're not going to make every open three. There are going to be some that you miss. I do feel like overall, there were not as many open. They took 38, so there's going to be some. But given, like, if you said, hey, Louisville was going to take 38 threes on last year's team compared to taking 38 threes on this year's team, I felt like there were less open ones than there would have been last year. I know that's like a weird hypothetical, but do you understand? Like, it felt like there were more closeouts, there were more contests. And, like, I've said this before, there's only so much you can do about 3-point defense. There's only so much you can do. It's not like 2-point defense where technically you can block the shot. But still, there have been studies that contested shots on average, it might not matter for that one specific shot, right? Good offense is going to beat good defense. But on average, over the long haul, more of the contested shots, more length on those contested shots is going to lead to more missed shots. And I think you saw that with the length and versatility, that I think this Kansas team is going to be more equipped to defend the 3-point line than we've seen in some recent years at KU. Anyway, our stat of the game, I guess you could point to that one. Our stat of the game that defined the game was probably the fact that there were 72 combined free throws. That was certainly ugly and not fun. I also love, though, if we're just talking about, where KU had the advantage, the 5-1 in blocks. I think that shows some of the length advantages. They have 34-20 in the points in the paint for KU. I think those would be the ones that I would probably point to. The fact that you forced 20 turnovers, obviously part of that is, first game situation for Kansas. The worst stat of the game for Kansas was probably the offensive rebounds. 21 for Louisville to 8 for Kansas. Now, some of those were, they're taking a lot of threes. Some of them are long rebounds. That is something they're going to have to tighten up moving forward. I do wonder if we see more of Tiller next to Flory to help tighten up with that, kind of depending on the game. But yeah, we'll make our stat of the game officially I guess we'll go with the 5-1 block. I don't know. Lead time 36 minutes to 2 minutes. I don't know if that's a stat. That's more of like an output necessarily. Well, we'll go with, I wish we had deflections as a stat, because if we had that publicly, I think Kansas would have a ton of them in this game. Our awards of the game, we're going to give our liar of the game award to the announcing crew. I don't have anything against either guy. They kept mentioning through like the beginning of the broadcast, the end of the broadcast, they're just like, oh my gosh, this arena is amazing. These fans are amazing. And the whole time I'm like, there's open seats on the entirety of what I'm watching here. Like, what's going on here? What am I missing? I'm sure during a regular season game, Louisville has an outstanding atmosphere. They do. I've seen many games there, and like they do have an outstanding atmosphere, and they are a great college basketball program. I just thought it was funny because it didn't, like, in an exhibit, Seth Greenberg at the beginning of the broadcast I don't remember the exact wording, but it was just like, man, how lucky are we that we get to be here? I think that was the phrasing. It doesn't get better than this. It's like, it doesn't get better than, don't get me wrong, I'm excited Kansas basketball is back, and it was fun to watch. It doesn't get better than a random exhibition basketball game in October. So I don't know. I thought some of that stuff was stretching the truth a little bit. I would say also the nervous award goes to Cole Rosario. Those threes were off, man. Like, he almost banked one in from it being so far off. They're going to need that to get tightened up. As I've said before, I think he's going to be a streaky shooter, though. There's going to be games where it doesn't look good. There's going to be other games where he can't miss. It was not great to see how off he was, but I do think there was a little bit of nerves. You're playing on the road for the first time. You obviously reclassified up. He just might be somebody that doesn't hit his stride till a little bit later. Obviously, with Jaden Dawson, he only played 3 minutes, so it doesn't seem like honestly, if you were to say anybody is in contention right now to eat up Cole Rosario minutes, would you point to Jamari McDowell? He played 16 minutes. Or maybe there would just be more that go to Marco Jackson. He played 27 minutes. He did have 11 points, but I don't know how real that was. 9 of 9 on free throws, because Louisville just kept extending the game. The longest game ever award goes to this one because it ended a little past 9 o'clock Central Time, started at like 6:40, over 2 hours for an exhibition game. But I'm sure both coaches appreciated that, you get more reps and everything like that. So that's obviously a good thing. All right, let's give out our game balls and what is next for KU basketball. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by DoorDash. It's the weekend. Let's look back and crown this week's MVP on who delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's talk more about Bryson Tiller, because Bryson Tiller was awesome for Kansas in this game, delivered in a big way, whether it was throwing down dunks, whether it was deflecting balls, whether it was getting a shot block, whether it was grabbing some rebounds, dribbling the ball. He was just doing everything for KU. And just like Bryson Tiller delivered for Kansas, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day, only with DoorDash. Terms apply, promo period through November 18th. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season's here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I've been mentioning all offseason. You can get Darren Peterson at 10-1 to win the Wooden Award. Apparently, I don't know if FanDuel saw it, or I don't know if people started betting it after the first half. It's already down to 9-1. Because people were probably like, oh, this guy's pretty good at basketball. Kansas went from 25-1 after tonight to 22-1 to win the national title. So people are slowly starting to buy into it more. You can still get in on that before too many people buy in on it. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started with FanDuel. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked on Jayhawks, and we'll have a recap at some point this weekend for KU K-State. Going to be kind of busy on Saturday, so we'll try to get it out as soon as possible, but no guarantees on that like this one. But big, impressive performance, Kansas 90, Louisville 82 in the exhibition game. And I get it. It's still an exhibition. It's not a game that, everything is totally real and you're playing guys different. But after how the last 2 years have gone, I think this one was even more important for KU, and boy, did they deliver. And I think you saw some certain individual performances that do make you feel better about the team, obviously. And if you play Louisville again, what are the chances Michael Brown goes 2 of 15 again? Probably not great, but I do think Kansas deserves some credit with their defense to at least do a little bit of that. Obviously, the biggest concern you'd have for Kansas in this one was, can you cut down the turnovers? Can you cut down the fouls? Can you improve the offensive rebounding? But everything else, pretty impressive stuff from KU overall. So that brings us to our game balls. Offensively, we'll give it an offensive game ball and then a defensive game ball. Offensively, we have to go with Darren Peterson, right? 26 points. I know specifically you could say in the first half for Darren Peterson, but he just was such a alpha in that first half, and then it completely changed the way Louisville had to try to defend him in the second half, to where it opened things up for other players on the floor. So Peterson was the hub. He was the alpha. He gets the offensive game ball for KU. By the way, I just noticed Melvin Council was 1 of 9 from the floor. I didn't feel like it was a great shooting game, but I didn't realize it was that poor. But it still felt like even 9 of 10 at the free throw line. He had 4 rebounds, 4 assists, plus 10 in the plus minus for KU. Flory, by the way, had the best there at plus 17. Our defensive player of the game, I think we got to give it to Bryson Tiller. With all the balls that he deflected, again, led the team with 4 blocks. He had 4 of the 5. Here's a little trivia for you. Who had the 5th? Okay, you're out of time. The correct answer is Jaden Dawson. You might have expected Flory Badunga. It was actually Jaden Dawson. And then 2 steals for Bryson Tiller, although that was second on the team. Darren Peterson had 5 of them, and obviously some of those led to runouts for KU. But, yeah, we'll give Tiller the 6 stocks combined. He seemed to really affect things on the interior against Louisville in this one. By the way, Kansas had 10 dunks in this game, 15 total layups and dunks. Louisville had 0 dunks. And honestly, maybe going back to the stat of the game, if I would have seen that earlier, that would be my stat of the game. Why? Because what else shows the length that KU has other than them getting dunks and preventing dunks at the rim? 10-0 in dunks. Would you win every game if you were 10-0 in dunks? I guess the other team could just go bonkers from 3, but I would feel good about KU if they were 10-0 in dunks every game, that's for sure. So Tiller, defensive game ball, Peterson, offensive game ball. Now, what's next for KU basketball after this one? So they're back at it Tuesday, final game of the exhibition season. That'll be against Fort Hays State. And that'll be one of those games where probably you see a lot of guys around 15 to 25 minutes per game. Probably a lot of guys scrunched in there. Last opportunities for players like Jamari McDowell and Jaden Dawson and Cole Rosario to kind of prove, obviously at different levels, should I be playing 30 minutes? Should I be playing 20? Should I be in the rotation? Should I not? Opportunity for those guys, maybe a bigger, sample size for a guy like Paul Mbia, maybe an opportunity for players like Bryson Tiller, who had a good first step in this game to, because the big thing with Bill Self, he wants consistency. So can you show the consistency against an overmatched opponent like Fort Hays State? And then it's the season opener. It'll be not this Monday, the following Monday, once we get into November, against Green Bay with Doug Gottlieb. So that'll certainly be a fun one there. And then they'll be at North Carolina. It gets difficult, but obviously they showed they could win on the road against a good opponent today in the ACC. But at North Carolina on Friday, November 7th. And the schedule doesn't get much easier from there. It's a difficult schedule, but it'll challenge them. And we're going to know a lot about this team through the first couple months of the season before Big 12 play. But obviously, they did pretty well the last couple of years in non-con play. It didn't carry over to Big 12 play. So there probably is going to be a little more trepidation this year in the non-con, but it just feels like with the athleticism and the pro potential this team has that some of those teams didn't have, it would feel a little different to me if you did have that performance in the non-con this early portion of the season than the last couple of years when you were more of a completed product at the beginning of the year. All right, that'll do it, though, for this episode of Locked on Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. See you next time for another edition of LOJ.